We're at the home of Jean Allison here in Muleshoe, and we're going to visit with her granddaughter, Marissa Allison. Marissa, where do you live now?
I live in Arlington, Virginia.
You live in Arlington, Virginia, and your father, Fred, grew up in Muleshoe, right?
Yep, he did. He lives in Fredericksburg, Virginia now, though.
And now, how close are you to your mother and father's home?
I'm about an hour away.
And so, did you graduate from high school in Fredericksburg?
Yep, I did. From Cortland High School.
And so, what year was that?
In 2006.
And then after high school, what did you do, Marissa?
I went to the University of Mary Washington, that's also in Fredericksburg, Virginia, and I started studying Arabic and history there.
Now, Arabic isn't a normal a major in college, and so how did you select that particular major?
Well, I actually picked it because I had studied Spanish and some French and a bit of Portuguese already, so I just wanted a different language, and I wanted something that was much harder.
And was it much, much harder?
Yes, it was. I actually failed my first Arabic exam, and that's why I started trying so hard, because I was determined not to fail again.
And so now, how have you used Arabic in your profession?
Well, now I'm a consultant, so I use it to help companies and the government know more about Middle Eastern business and culture and politics.
So now, history being your other interest, was it a specific history?
Yeah, I did Middle Eastern history.
Middle Eastern history. Yeah. And so that went along with your Arabic, of course. And so now, what year did you get your bachelor's?
I got it in 2010.
In 2010. And then after you got your bachelor's, what did you do, Marissa Allison?
I went on a State Department scholarship program to Oman in the Persian Gulf area right below Saudi Arabia, and it's called the Critical Language Scholarship, and it's for advanced Arabic students just to study for 3 months. And then
Now, wait. The 3 months there in Oman, well, now you studied at a university or on your own, sort of, or did you live with a family, or how?
Well, it was about 20 of us in the program, and they put us in a hotel that was picked by the State Department to be safe. And then we studied.
And was it safe?
Yes, it was very safe. It was kind of it was very swanky and like kind of a fancy place, but it was good. And then we studied in a very small institute run by a company, actually an American company called World Learning. And it's just very small. And then the teachers were picked for this State Department program, so they were better. And it was run by a Princeton University professor.
I see. So then after Amman and the 3 months there, what did you do?
Then I interned at the Center for Strategic and International Studies in D.C., and I actually did military strategy there. And I worked on a project about Iranian-U.S. competition as it relates to the Persian Gulf and Arab countries there.
Was there anything that you learned specifically that really surprised you during that study?
Well, not that surprised me. I had studied the Middle Eastern region for a long time, but actually just the entire experience was very good. I spent a lot of time with a lot of military professionals and learned a lot about military strategy and kind of the way that Washington works as far as developing.
Well, tell us how Washington works, because we are really, really trying to figure that out.
Well, defense policy is a lot different than domestic policy. That's kind of why I like it. Domestic policy gets very messy. There's too much partisanship and a lot going on there. So defense policy, it's just kind of run. At this point, the military has been integrated more into defense policy, which is why you see General Petraeus taking such a strong role. And that's happened pretty much ever since September 11th. The military has gained a lot of respect, I think, in politics in general. So they're taking a stronger role on developing defense policy.
So you think that we have improved over the last few years then?
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, we've just learned so much. I think that the American people hadn't really prepared for war when when we went into Afghanistan and Iraq and everything. And now it's kind of just been built into the political system.
And the partisanship, you don't think gets into the defense policies?
It does, but to a lesser extent, I think. I think that everyone, at this point, liberals and Democrats and then Republicans and everyone, they all kind of agree that what is best for American safety should come first. And then beyond that, defining how you get to that is always going to be different on both sides. But, I mean, as long as you're putting American safety and security first, I think that everyone can kind of agree on that.
Then after that, what did you do?
Then I went to Pakistan for 6 weeks with a professor from Rice University that studies religious studies, but he's specifically interested in radical Islam. So we're studying different Islamic and secular extremist groups in Pakistan, and also just kind of sightseeing and seeing the country.
Now, was that with others from Rice or just with him?
It was just him and I just traveling together.
Really?
Yeah.
And he had been there before, I'm sure.
Yeah, he had been twice before. And that was actually part of the reason, was so much is going on in Pakistan in recent years as far as developments and Islamic movements and political movements as well. So he didn't feel that he could teach it and write about it without actually going back and seeing how it's affected Pakistani society.
Now, as a young American lady, what are your feelings on Pakistan, just in general, not in any specific area? And that's pretty broad,
right.
But still, sort of, can you put it in a nutshell?
Yeah, it's definitely overwhelming. It's very intense, and it's just an undeveloped country, honestly. It is very overwhelming when, as an American woman going there, there's a lot of poverty. It's not a stable situation at all. It's really, honestly, pretty depressing and overwhelming in how much poverty and kind of chaos there is there. Mm-hmm.
Then after Pakistan, what did you do?
Then I actually worked at Rice University at the Baker Institute for Public Policy in the Energy Forum there.
And so what did you do at Rice, specifics?
So I was the office manager, and I also helped develop energy policy, especially with the Arab Spring going on. A lot of oil companies and oil policy just relates to whether or not it's stable as far as the American view on energy and oil. So they thought it would be a good time to hire someone that just got back from the Middle East and speaks Arabic and kind of knows more about that. So I helped out there just by doing research projects for my boss, Amy Jaffe, there.
Mm-hmm. And how long did you stay in Houston then?
I was there for about 6 months.
And something back to the specific study of Arabic, are there different dialects or is just Arabic?
Oh, there's actually a lot of different dialects, and I think that's one of the most difficult things about the language. But actually, all of the media and books and literature are written in modern standard Arabic, and that in Arabic is called Fusha, and it just means the most eloquent. So it's very high level, it's kind of compared to Shakespearean English. So it's at a very high level, and that's what everything is written in. But then people on the street would never speak something that's compared to Shakespearean English. So they all speak different dialects, and those are different in every country and even different within the countries.
And have you done well when you're talking to or trying to communicate with the common man through the language?
I didn't at first. I think I've gotten a lot better, but the dialect that I speak is actually what they speak in Jordan and Lebanon and Syria.
And have you been to Jordan?
Yeah, I studied abroad in Jordan when I was an undergraduate.
And Syria?
Yeah, so during my Jordan program, I was there for about 5 months, and 1 week of that was to go to Egypt, and 1 week of that was actually to live with the tribe in the desert. Yeah, and then after that, I went to Lebanon.
1 week with the tribe.
Yeah. They're called Bedouin, and they live out in the middle of the desert.
Nowhere.
Yeah, but the government in Jordan actually doesn't want them to be nomadic anymore, so they built these kind of very basic houses out in the desert, and now the Bedouin live there with their tribes.
Oh, I think that would be most interesting. Yeah. And so sort of tell us just a little bit about that experience with the tribe.
I mean, it was both the most difficult part of being in Jordan, but also the most rewarding, because the minute that I walked in the door, they said, "You're a part of our family, Marissa. Like, we're not going to call you Marissa anymore because you're now my daughter, and we'll call you the name Mace," which means something equivalent to gazelle, they told me.
It's not a mace like you spray.
No. So it was supposed to be a very nice name to give me, so they named me Mace. And I really felt like I was part of the family. I helped out. I lived with a family in the city, Amman, Jordan, and they made me feel like a guest, and it was very nice. I loved them too, but they served me all of my meals. I didn't help out or anything, and this tribal family was completely different. The minute I get in, they give me a different name and tell me to go help cook the meal because that's what the women are supposed to do. So I go and help, and I cook and clean and wake up in the morning at 4 a.m. like everyone else. And
at what time would be the end of their day then if you get up at 4 a.m.? Or do the ladies get up earlier?
The girls do get up earlier because they have to cook and clean before the kids all go to school and everything. And the father was actually in the Jordanian military, so he got up pretty early too. And
so the girls do go to school?
Yes, they did. And I actually had to help teach English at the school. I didn't have to, but I wanted to, and so I was there for the week. I mean, since everyone else is there. But actually, school only lasts from 8 to 12 because they don't have enough resources to keep the kids in school all day, and also so that the kids can then go back and help their families. Yeah.
How interesting. So now you're in Jordan, and what year is this?
That was 2009.
Now, in all of your studies abroad, have you ever felt threatened or scared?
I mean, you do feel a little bit nervous right when you get there, but Jordanians, and I think Arabs in general, are actually very friendly and welcoming people. So I didn't feel so scared, especially in Jordan. I felt perfectly safe. And I mean, it is as far as Middle Eastern countries, Oman and Jordan are some of the safest. When I was traveling in Lebanon, there's always instability there, so I kind of was nervous, but then again, once you're there and you kind of get into it, you don't...
I asked you the wrong question. Was your mother nervous?
I actually don't know. I have to assume that she was, but she actually never says too much about it. She was very nervous when I went to Pakistan, though.
Was she?
Yeah, the rest of it was kind of like, oh, okay, we get it, but... Not Pakistan. She didn't understand why I would want to do that.
And you were there for 3 months, right?
For 6 weeks.
6 weeks. 6 weeks. Okay, so we'll go back to Jordan. Then what happened after that?
So after Jordan, and I just finished up my program, I did a thesis. And actually for the thesis part of the program, you get to live in an apartment on your own. So that was pretty nice. And then as soon as I could, I was kind of bored with Jordan, so I was ready to move on and travel more. I went to Lebanon and Syria, and I had set up an internship in Jerusalem for the summer after that. So then I lived in Jerusalem for the summer, and then went back to Jordan, and then came home.
Now, the food, is it similar in the tribe as it is in, say, Jerusalem or Jordan or Syria, or not at all?
There are some similarities. Pretty much everyone eats this. The Jordanian dish is called minsaf, and it's just rice with a yogurt sauce and either goat or chicken. And if a family doesn't have as much money, they have to eat chicken because goat and lamb cost more. And that's pretty much all they eat, except processed foods are very big out there. So they'll eat a lot of chips and candy and like processed cheese, and that was something I was very surprised about.
Me too.
And it's kind of considered a luxury, but it's also nothing really grows out there. It's not a good environment for growing food. There's not a lot of water. Jordan is one of the most water poor countries in the world, so they can't grow vegetables. They can't really grow anything else, so processed foods is pretty much the way to go.
Now, how did they purchase their food? Like we do it all or not?
You actually just get it from these like tiny hole-in-the-wall shops that are all over anywhere you go. That even in a town in the middle of nowhere in the desert, there will be one shop in town that has all the food that everyone buys.
And so did you ever get sick because of the food, or did you ever get sick at all and want mother and daddy?
No, that first trip I didn't get sick. I started to get sick both in Oman and Pakistan. Oman didn't have I don't think had as good a food as Jordan and the other places. And Pakistan, it's like I said, it's just so underdeveloped. There's not hygienic standards like anywhere else.
Do they have bottled water at all like we do?
Yeah, they do. They have a lot of bottled water. Most people drink that. In Jordan, most people have water filters installed in their homes. So.
Okay, I'm almost lost. Are we in Jerusalem or where?
Well, we can be wherever.
Well, what happened then?
Well, so in Jerusalem, I actually just worked at this journal called the Palestine-Israeli Journal, and it's a journal.
Is that a newspaper?
It's more of a magazine. It's published quarterly, or a scholarly journal. It's the editorial board, though, is split exactly between Palestinians and Israelis, and it's also an NGO, so it's kind of focused on having roundtables for youth that are funded by the EU and other organizations like the UN to kind of just get Israelis and Palestinians at a very young age to sit down at a table and kind of talk about what's going on, and also just how to deal with it, because I think everyone there has experienced a lot more violence than kids in other parts of the world, and it's a good outlet for them to kind of talk about what's happening.
Sounds very good.
Yeah.
Is it helping?
That I don't know. I think generally it's a good thing, but I don't know how much such a small program can really do. I mean, in the long run, when on both sides you do have extremists, and I don't know if having a few moderates sit down together and talk every once in a while is going to solve.
And also, it might take a long time, and if it's such a small program, it might not.
You're right. And I hope that the program gets better and bigger and goes throughout the country, but it is hard on both sides, and they are actually being attacked by both sides because they are working together. So that you have a lot of Israelis saying that you shouldn't work with Palestinians, and you have a lot of Palestinians saying you shouldn't work with Israelis. So it's very difficult for them to gain widespread support.
Okay, so what year do you leave Jerusalem?
In 2009. This is all from January to July 2009.
Okay, all of that. Gee, you must be 105 by now. But I can look and tell you're not. So what happened after 2009?
So actually that summer, as soon as I got back, I went to Brazil with my older brother, but that was just a vacation. And then
which one? Daniel?
Daniel, yeah.
And he went to Tech, right?
No, he went to Rice, and Stuart went to Tech, yeah. So then after that, I just had my senior year at college, and during...
This is undergraduate.
Yeah.
Senior year.
So that was 2009 to 2010 was my senior year. And I just finished up, I actually wrote 2 theses, and I finished up those and did an internship with a political risk consulting firm based in London, translating media from the Arab world for them.
And so now we're to 2011, last year, right?
Yep.
And so then what happens in your long, long life?
Nothing. After 2011, when I was at the Baker Institute, I just moved up to Arlington because I got the current job that I have doing consulting.
Okay, now you work for what company?
Booz Allen Hamilton.
And do you travel some? Or
no, I don't, actually. And they said maybe in the future, but that was actually one thing they were a bit worried about with me, is if I could be happy just settling down in Arlington. And after all the traveling, I am happy to settle down. So
now, the company works with what types of companies?
Honestly, all types. And I I honestly am unable to say who our clients are because they're confidential, and I don't know. So
it just any from any industry.
Right, exactly. It's just anything. Anybody could ask these questions, and it's all different industries depending on the project, and that changes all the time.
And so what type of things have you done for them?
Mostly it's about market entry strategy into the Middle East, like a specific country there.
Company that wants to go over to the, or is in either way.
Right. And then there's some other things, like I honestly had to do a project on computer programming or, luxury cars. It could be anything. Yeah. Yep.
So it's just anything that the consumer or the person that you're working for needs to know.
Right.
Now, what about there? Do you live in an apartment?
Yeah, I live in an apartment in Arlington. My company is actually based in McLean.
Virginia, McLean, Virginia.
Yeah.
And you live in Arlington, so do you commute very far?
It's not too far, but with traffic, it can take quite a while. So I take the metro, and then my company provides a shuttle to the office every morning. So.
And so when the earthquake happened recently, did that affect you?
Honestly, no. And I mean, I was in the office, and the person that was sitting next to me kind of looks over and says, well, I think this is an earthquake. And I was like, well, me too. But I mean, what do you do? So I've never been in an earthquake before. So we both just sat back down at our desks and waited for it to be over.
I think I need to jump back. You were talking about your theses. Okay. Now, was that for a master's degree?
No.
That was undergraduate.
Yeah. The history program at my university requires that all of their students write a thesis. Really? And the second one was actually just one that I had started in Jordan, but I thought it was very interesting, and I wanted to finish it up so that I could present it at conferences.
And so you don't have your master's yet?
No, I don't.
And can I ask how young you are? I mean, your life has been so long already, but yet I can tell you're not that old.
Yeah, I'm 23.
Only 23. How interesting that you have been able to accomplish so much and do so much. Now, why do you think that you were interested in this area and traveling like you have?
Well, I think that the interest just came after I started studying Arabic. I honestly just picked it because I thought it was hard, and I thought that it would be a challenge for me to do, and I didn't actually think that I was going to make it my major. I thought in the long run I would go to law school and just kind of have a normal life. But then I started studying Arabic, and with that comes all of this other information. You start learning about the politics and the culture, and it's so different from ours that I really wanted to learn more about it. And the reason why I traveled is I don't think that you can truly understand another group of people until you've been there and you've seen them and you've talked to them.
I think you're right. Did you ever have to wear a burqa while you were in your studies and in your traveling and visiting there?
Yeah. I didn't wear a burqa. I did cover my hair. But I actually lived with the tribe. They're the most conservative, as you can probably imagine. And so I wasn't allowed to leave the house without being covered because I was, again, part of the family. Mm-hmm. And so they said that I had to carry the family honor just like one of their daughters would. Mm-hmm. And so I wasn't allowed to leave without my head being covered. And one time I did because my academic director told me it was okay because I wasn't actually a tribal girl, and he was like, oh, it's fine, you can just go ahead and go visit one of your friends. And as soon as I walk into my friend's house, where she is staying with the tribal family over there too, her dad is like, what are you doing? Put your headscarf on, you can't walk into my house like that. And yeah, so I was like, okay, like, I'm sorry, I don't have one. So, I mean, that's what I mean. It was one of the most difficult times, but rewarding because you feel the hospitality, but you also feel the restrictions that go with that.
Right. And it was interesting to me that the young ladies there were able to go to school. That's wonderful.
At most places in the Arab world, the girls are educated. Even in the most conservative place, which is Saudi Arabia, girls go to school, and they actually have a higher education rate than men. And in Jordan, the population at universities is majority female, actually. But in places more like Pakistan and Afghanistan, I think that's more cultural than it is Islamic, because women are often schooled in Islamic countries, but not in Afghanistan and Pakistan. So I think that has more to do with them being a completely different culture that is more male-dominated and hasn't advanced as much as far as the Arabs have.
Now, what about your family that you were reared in? How many brothers and sisters do you have?
I have one sister and two brothers.
And tell me about your siblings and where they are today and what they are doing.
Well, Olivia, who's my oldest sister, is living in London, and she's also doing consulting, but she is actually working at one of my rival companies. Oh, really? And she studies Russian and kind of does something similar to what I do, but using her Russian skills more.
I see. And how long has she been there?
She's been in London for probably 6 years now.
Really?
Yeah.
And what about your brothers?
My oldest brother, Daniel, is living in Houston working at a law firm, and my brother, Stuart, is also in Houston working in an architecture firm.
Now, isn't one of them going to go into the Navy?
Yes, Stuart is joining the Navy in April.
In April, yeah. And your father, we should talk about what he does because that's interesting.
Yeah, and I think my dad has actually influenced me a lot in what I've chosen to study and do. And he is a marine historian in Quantico, Virginia right now.
And so he works for our United States Marines, right?
Right. And
he was a Marine?
Yes, he was a Marine. And he finished out his 20 years before he retired, and now he works as a civilian.
And your mother?
My mother, I also think she's influenced me a lot because she's both a Spanish and a French teacher. So her love of languages has to be where I wanted to study Arabic from.
Now, did she teach in the public school system, or is she still teaching?
Yes, she's still teaching in Fredericksburg.
They're in Fredericksburg. Now, you weren't born in Virginia.
No, I was born in Greenville, Texas.
Now, how did a girl from Texas and East Texas, Greenville, get to Virginia? How did that all happen?
Well, when I was around 6, I moved to Lubbock because my dad wanted to get his PhD and work at Texas Tech.
Okay, now, he graduated from Muleshoe High School. Did he go into the Marines right after that? Or do you
No, I think he went to the University of North Texas and then joined the Marines later.
Okay, and so where did he get his bachelor's?
North Texas.
At North Texas.
Yep.
So he had it before he went into the Marines?
Yes, he did. So he was an officer.
And he spent 20 years with the Marines?
Yeah, 12 active duty and then 8 in the reserves.
Okay. And so when did your parents meet, or where did they meet?
They met in Yuma, Arizona.
Okay. Was he in the service?
Yeah, he was in the service. And her father was also in the military, so she had always grew up near the base. And so they just kind of met through friends in Yuma, Arizona. And
so then where did he get his master's?
He got his master's from Texas A&M, I think, but East Texas or something. I'm not sure about that. I wasn't born. But then he got his PhD from Texas Tech.
Maybe there in not Greenville.
Texas, I think.
Oh, okay.
Austin might know.
Commerce, you're right, Austin. I didn't know Austin had come in. Yeah, at Commerce, yeah. Yes, of course. East Texas is what it used to be called, but now it's East Texas A&M University at Commerce. Okay.
Yeah, so I was kind of right.
He got his master's.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're living in Greenville. What's he doing there?
He was working at Roadway then.
And what's Roadway?
a trucking company. He was a manager there doing logistics.
Okay. And so he decides to go back to college, and he moves back to his home area.
Yeah.
Gets his PhD in what?
In military history.
In military history. So do you think he already had in the back of his mind, this is what I want to do, is to help in the history of the Marines?
Absolutely. That's what his always dream job has been, you know.
Did you say you were 6 when you moved to Lubbock?
Yeah.
So when you left Lubbock, how old were you?
I think I was 12.
And so really, you really basically have been reared in Virginia.
Right.
Okay. But you started out in Texas, so that's most important. So so that sort of sets the picture of how you then evolved into the young lady that you now are with your background. And your mother's name is Martha?
Yes, Martha.
And so are you really satisfied with where you are today?
I am. I'm very satisfied for where I am now. I'm not sure what I want to do in the future, but I'm very happy where I am.
And what about, your feeling about the average? And, of course, that's sort of the average. Well, what is the average American citizen and their feelings toward the Middle East? What do you think?
Well, like you said, I think it's hard to just know what average is. I think that there are a lot of misunderstandings generally in American perceptions of the Middle East. I think we hear a lot of bad news, and you just don't hear about the average person because that's not news. So I think that you don't really find out about what those people are like until you try and learn about them.
And did you find that the people that you came in contact with were basically just people that have dreams and hopes or not? Are they different than we are, really?
I wouldn't say that their culture is different, but they really are just people. They're just like anybody else trying to do what's best for themselves and their families.
And what is some of the biggest difference in our cultures between America and the Middle East?
There are so many differences, but I think there are a lot of differences in terms of just interpersonal relationships and what's appropriate. They have a lot higher level of kind of respect and tradition as far as dealing with people. They kind of come off uptight, and everything's very serious. You don't behave in a certain way out in public. You have to keep up the family honor.
Well, I don't think that would hurt for us to think about that. What do you think?
I mean, I think there are certain positives to both sides of it. I mean, it's nice to kind of relax every once in a while and feel more comfortable. And obviously I'm American, so I think that. But I also think that Americans could do with a bit more respect in their interpersonal relationships, too.
Definitely. We've been talking with 23-year-old Marissa Allison, and she's here in Muleshoe right now visiting her grandmother, Jean Allison, who is getting ready to move to Lubbock. And golly, Marissa has had more experiences than the average Muleshoeite, I'm going to guess, don't you think?
I don't know. It depends.
I said average, Muleshoeite. Thank you for sharing just a little bit of your 23 years of life that did all start right here in Texas.
Thank you.
You're welcome.